cannabis can have truly negative side effects. And that's because you ain't using it right. But once you learn the formula, like the women I help, and become confident in the compounds and the products that you're choosing, then you are going to be amazed at the autonomy that you're going to feel in your own self-care.
Welcome to Season 6 of the Cannabis Truth Podcast, where we speak the language of cannabis freely and uncensored while educating our audience on safe use of this live plant therapy. You should know what's in your cannabis, what's good and what's not, because cannabis does not come with an FDA stamp of approval, yet. The information you will find here comes straight from scientists and clinicians, doing the work and reporting their findings in reputable outlets. Hopefully, we can inspire you to research the facts as we know them today. Cannabis is an amazing alternative in health remedies, with the potential to alleviate typical disease problems and troubling side effects, even those caused by synthetic prescriptions. Here now is the host of the Cannabis Truth Podcast. She is a 21st century cannabis shaman, not a doctor, not a scientist. Raised by nuns and wolves in the verdant cattle pastures of the Oklahoma oil fields, here to amplify the truth of this great big story of cannabis in historical, political, scientific, and spiritual terms, so you can make educated decisions about the medicine you choose to ingest. Please welcome Honey Smith-Walls.
Wow. Wow. Do I have a show for you today? And it's a monologue. I'm not having a guest on because I need to talk to you all about this happening in real time to me and to you. Today I'm going to talk about the negative side of cannabis. And I've got a doozy going on in real time. I'm supposed to be giving the keynote lecture at an event tomorrow night in St. Clair, Michigan, for mental health awareness. And guess what? I just got a text message this morning from the director of the event. She says, "Good morning. Due to unforeseen sponsorship conflicts, we'll have to adjust speaking time to 10 to 15 minutes. It's all right. I was only going to speak for 20 minutes anyway, and I can shorten anything I say. But she says other aspects of the event must be prioritized due to contractual sponsorship obligations. Another issue was that our major sponsor's brand doesn't align with the promotion of cannabis. But I insisted. We continue on with the presentation about safe cannabis use." I wrote back immediately. This was early on this morning, at the crack of dawn. I wrote back and said, well, there's no problem for speaking time, but I'm amazed that here in recreational Michigan, there is still this kind of stigma going on. The event I'm speaking at is about mental health. And cannabis helps that so much. But wait, there's more. She's not at liberty to disclose who those sponsors are. But she said, I stood my ground. And I was very insistent on keeping it in the program. But now I'm going to be the first speaker. That's okay. They'll remember me. So I wrote back and told her I was grateful for the opportunity even to, jump up on stage and talk about this taboo subject. Holy cow. And that I'll be there. I just, wow, this just whacked my perspective about this event like crazy, because this event is threatened. I mean, those sponsors may still threaten her with pulling their sponsorship. That's pretty rank, if they want to get nasty about it. So I can't tell you how much I appreciated her standing up for me and Safe Cannabis talk. So here we go. I'll let you know on the other side of the event what happened, but I've got another lecture coming up in an hour on the Resilience Beyond Menopause forum on Facebook. That's a live woman's forum for learning how to woman 101 on this planet, with all kinds of experts in all kinds of fields that women need to learn about. There are so many different modalities for learning how to be how do I want to put this? A woman in truth on this planet. We've been gaslighted for so many years. All right, I'm going to stop this. I'm about to really get up on my high horse and rant and rave, and I don't want to do that. But I do want you to be aware of the stigma, even in a recreational state where the populace came together and decided they wanted full exposure to cannabis, and yet there is still opposition to hearing the truth about it. So, like I said, I'll let you know on the other side. I gotta have a sip of coffee. Hang on a second. You may hear my little teddy bear over there going, Yeah, he wants over here in my lap, and I just can't dangle him on this chair while working with you all. So hang on a second. I may have to talk to him and assuage his little emotional feelings, because they're sentient creatures too. They feel like we do. They love and hate and all that stuff. So anyway, all right. Here's the deal. Today we're going to talk about the negative side of using cannabis, and there's several. Hi, Honey Smith Walls here. I'm host of the Cannabis Truth podcast, weekly for the past 6 years. But today I'm inviting you to a Facebook group called the Holistic Relief Summit, in hopes that you too will come for the peace and stay for the epiphanies. It's a beautiful space for women to find all kinds of relief from all kinds of suffering. Come join us for free.
Well, hello, I'm Dr. Philip Blair, and I want to introduce you to Honey Smith Walls. And she recently had an experience with beta caryophyllene.
For years, I've been dealing with lots of arthritis pain and pain from neuropathy that has not been resolved through other prescriptive methods. As an advocate educator in the cannabis industry, I learn lots of interesting information about the compounds within the plants, and one of those turned out to be beta caryophyllene.
What was your first dose like?
I was gobsmacked. Absolutely gobsmacked. It has given me my future back.
I want to get it out to everybody too. I want to get it out to the whole world, as a matter of fact. It has so many mitigating factors for all the stresses of life and pain and diseases. It is unbelievable, the spectrum of care that it can provide.
Today we're going to talk about the negative side of using cannabis, and there's several. And I don't remember the last time I, even spoke about any of this, because I don't want to scare anybody off. But cannabis can have truly negative side effects. And that's because you ain't using it right. But once you learn the formula, like the women I help, and become confident in the compounds and the products that you're choosing, then you are going to be amazed at the autonomy that you're going to feel in your own self-care. See, I was raised to believe that you take all of your issues to your doctor, and he tells you what's the matter with you, and then gives you a pill for it. And then you go do, the pharmacy and get your script, and then you go home and take it for 10 days. And if you ain't fixed, you go back and get more, or whatever. Never occurred to me that I had the authority over myself to choose differently than the American medical system of sick care. And now at 70 that I know this to be true, I have studied about managing my own health care and those, typical womanly aches and pains and bumps and bruises that we get throughout our lives that just do not require a doctor dance. So that's how I got into cannabis and why I am discussing all of this with you, so that you too can feel the joyfulness, the happiness, the peace and calm that I have learned to bring into my life from managing all that suffering. Wow, suffering was my modus operandi, it truly was. And I didn't know that. I didn't even realize I was suffering so much. I just knew I was miserable and didn't know how to get away from that misery until I found cannabis and mentors to help me lift my thoughts, to help me discipline my thoughts and contain those that were not serving me and get rid of them, and how to do that. So I began listening to other women who were obviously more elevated than me. And guess what happened? Elevation. Anyway, like I was about to tell this audience tomorrow night, I haven't always been this darling 70-year-old package you see here in front of you today. No, I was once miserable, but cannabis helped me out of that and past it, and even guided me into finding mentors to help what's upstairs, truly. So that's what I've been talking about for the past 6 years on this weekly podcast. But now I really want you to understand the full blossom of this plant. It can have some pretty surprising and nasty side effects if you don't know what you're doing. That's why I'm here to help you understand, so you'll know what you're doing. Let's get into these. Here we go. I already said this. Too much THC? Ooh, that can really surprise you. THC is in the marijuana plant. There's a little teeny tiny itsy bitsy bit in the hemp plant too. 0.03% to be precise by law. And so that whole rigmarole is a ridiculous legislative blunder. More about that later. If you use too much THC, then it is highly possible for you to have high anxiety that leads into paranoia, with feelings of paralysis or thumping heart, racing heart. It really can send you on a mind bender. Now, it isn't going to hurt you if you consider that that's not harm. That's just uncomfortable anxiety, right? And paranoia. But recall that you're in a safe space and that you're with friends and that you're, and if you're not, then you ain't doing it right. Especially for your first few times of practicing with cannabis to find your sweet spot. Okay, more about that later. Another show. Not here to teach you about how to use it. Here to teach you about how to avoid the pitfalls. Shh, 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 shh. Teddy, nope. Shh. Teddy, shh. Be quiet. So, there are many levels of anxiety that you can experience when you overuse THC. And if you don't know the alchemy to taming that THC, hang out with me a little more and you will have found it in many other shows. The huge problem with cannabis right now is that there are no standards because the undulating laws around... Oh, Millie. Shh. Hang on a second, everybody. Shh. Stop that, please. Millie, no. The undulating laws rolling across our country that are all different state by state prevent standardization. And because it is still federally illegal and ranked as a Schedule I drug, meaning it has no connotation or good output for the public, and they have restricted it from our use, which is a big, fat lie. And they know it because they, meaning our U.S. government, have already patented parts of cannabis and called it a neuroprotective, protecting our neurons up in our brain. Can you imagine that they prevent us from using it even though they recognize the depths of its medicinal values? So, the gaslighting that's been going on, that is a huge negative side. And what I told you about this live in-person lecture at a fashion show to bring awareness to mental health. Yeah, they don't want it either. Some of those sponsors, they don't want me to come in and talk about cannabis. Now, I don't know who those sponsors are, but I can't wait to find out. There is very poor consistency when you're looking for cannabis products across the United States. I've been in this for the past decade, and I have 3 trusted sources where you can get medicinal cannabis sent directly to your mailbox. But this is a huge country, and there are huge numbers of cannabis companies producing all kinds of things for us now. And if you don't know which ones are safe to try, and if you don't know what safe means around cannabis, hang out with me, you're going to find out. There is little to no contamination control across the board. That's why I keep telling you about my 3 trusted sources that always provide lab reports testing these products that they provide for us. That's why I can trust them, and you can too. There is very poor tracing of these products. Oh, pardon me, my nose itches. You know what that means? Company. Let me have a little swig. That coffee, it's so good. Poor tracing of these products from the ground to your gut. And there should be. Because if you've heard me in the past, you understand what can grow naturally in these plants, not to mention the man-made toxins and pesticides and herbicides and fungicides and stuff that comes in it. But, it grows molds and mildews. And there's just all kinds of other things in it. It's a heavy metal uptake. It loves to suck up heavy metals out of our earth. And that can be a really great thing. That's how they cleaned up Chernobyl. Oh, stop me. Here I go again. That's why I have my notes and it's several pages of them. So I really want to not turn into Chatty Cathy about this, but continue telling you about the problems in cannabis, the uncontrollable genetics. I mean, scientists are going crazy happy over getting to discover all the new compounds that we've not been able to look at in modern times because of our stupid laws, our stupid political shenanigans that forbid us to even research cannabis. What? Right. Let that sink in for a second. We have been forbidden, our scientists, our doctors, our clinicians, anybody has been even forbidden to research this plant. Now that just seems ridiculous, and it seems like there's some conspiratorial thing going on. I mean, I understand that alcohol doesn't want cannabis coming in. I understand that cannabis doesn't want, cotton doesn't want cannabis coming in to replace fabric. And it's so much easier and gentler on our earth and the soil than cotton is. I understand that Big Pharma doesn't want cannabis coming in. I get it. I understand religious people don't want cannabis coming in. I understand warmongers and political hacks don't want cannabis coming in because they don't want people to be at ease and at peace and not want war. They want fighting and chaos. I get that. And that's exactly what cannabis helps us subdue. It gives us peace in our heart. We don't feel like fighting so much. Okay. I just said it. Cannabis is not federally legal. It's still a Schedule 1, and some states are still punishing people for using cannabis. Not just a traffic fine. They're putting them in jail. Do you know in some countries they're still chopping off heads for using cannabis? Look it up. I just want to say that our federal law is never an excuse for justice in truth. It isn't. And this is not just. The gaslighting of cannabis from political shenanigans has been immense. And if we do not call out these lies, then we will not get past the stigma and the fear that we need to get past in order to begin using this gentle plant alternative to the American Sick Care pilot plan. Our naughty politicians somehow usurped the little black bags of our doctors. How did that happen? Where did they get their medical training? How do they know that cannabis should not be accessible to the public and to our animals? Our animals need it too. Now that we know that we have a built-in receptor system, it's called our endocannabinoid system. Endo, Latin for within, cannabinoid, for cannabis system. It is a master regulatory system that governs all our other 11 bodily functions. Our endocrine system, our skeleton system, our central nervous system, our on and on and on it goes. Go look it up. And you now know more about it than 99.9% of the doctors on the planet. They've not even heard of the endocannabinoid system, but you have. And you now know that that system in our body of receptors, they're all receptors, goes in our blood, in our eyeballs, in our everything, in our bones, everywhere, in our skin. That receptor system binds perfectly with the hundreds of compounds that are in cannabis. And those hundreds of compounds, they all play together synergistically already because they're siblings. They love each other already. So when they whoosh over into our body has a receptor system that loves them too. Oh, yay, it says. Cannabis is here. I love cannabis. It's like nutrition for our system, like food. And oh, by the way, the cannabis seed is a whole food. You could actually subsist on just cannabis seeds if you had to. Wouldn't taste very good, but if you had to, you could. It could keep you alive because it's so nutritious. It is a whole food. Look it up. There are physical and cognitive side effects. Yes, it will give you short-term memory loss. Now, if you're already experiencing that, that might sound like a fearful side effect. But let me suggest something to you. Another sip of coffee before it gets too cold to drink. That is really not necessarily a negative side effect because people with PTSD, either from war or hurricanes or fires or traffic accidents or spousal abuse or, boss abuse, your job, whatever it is that you're doing that creates all of that PTSD in you, or whatever you've lived through and suffered that created that PTSD, all those negative looping thoughts that you've got going on and on and on that just fracture your poor little nervous system, those can truly be assuaged by using cannabis and especially THC because it gives you a temporary memory loss. And that lets those negative looping thoughts gently subside for a while to give you peace in your system. Because if you are constantly living with PTSD in that fight or flight survival stage, it creates toxic chemicals within your system and it just keeps recirculating and you feel terrible and you can't seemingly get past it. Oh yeah, Big Pharma's got plenty of drugs for it, but they too have real serious negative side effects. And it's not just temporary memory loss to allow you to go to sleep and have a good night's rest. You can also have impaired coordination and motor skills and reaction times using too much THC. I've never known any of the other compounds to do that. And there are hundreds of compounds in cannabis, but THC is unique. And it is mind-bending. And it can make you feel like the world's going in slow motion. It can make you feel like you're driving 100 miles an hour when you're only doing 20. It's got some comical reactive times. And all of this can be completely controlled if you know the alchemy for using cannabis compounds properly. Now, that's not to say that I have anything against getting high, but if you're trying to use this compound medicinally to get rid of the other symptoms and side effects of whatever you're going through of life, then you really need to know how to tame THC. And this issue of impaired coordination comes with overuse of too much THC. Here's another one. Smoking the plant irritates the lining of your esophagus. And over time, the heat and the lighter fluid that you're inhaling, or sulfur from matchsticks, or however you're lighting your joints and your pipes and your bongs, or whatever that is, by smoking the real leaf, that can be a bit of a problem for some people. But I would say that is an overuse problem, an overuse issue as well. And that there are many, many ways of getting around that particular issue, because you no longer have to smoke. You can totally use edibles, you can use tinctures, you can use inhalants, and there are even suppositories and skin care. So smoking is definitely, and there's vaping too, which is easier, more gentle. It's on your throat. It is not the same. So there are many ways to get around that little issue. THC, yes, can increase your heart rate. But what we find is that it may increase your heart rate a little, but then it balances it back into homeostasis. That's what your system in balance is called by the medical profession, homeostasis. Dry mouth, dry eyes are a common issue among beginners. Again, generally those who are smoking, but this is easily controlled. And again, we want to use the right alchemy for the right time of day, for the correct issue, So once you learn how to use cannabis compounds properly for your lifestyle, that you have common access to, then it's a whole different story. THC can cause the munchies, it's true. So if you've got some weight issue going on, that might be a fearful little issue for you, but it doesn't have to be. It does not have to be. Planning for that particular issue is key to controlling it. So if you know that you're going to imbibe to get high on THC and it will probably give you the munchies, then prepare ahead of time. Have foods available for you that will not put more weight on you, but will be healthy and enjoyable to eat as well. All right. Yep, I've said this again. Too much THC can cause paranoia and feelings of paralysis. A patient called me once and she was terrified. She was sitting in a chair at her kids' and he had given her some brownies that had cannabis in it, that had a lot of THC in it. And she trusted her son, so she just ate the whole brownie. And oh my goodness, she couldn't tell me what kind of cannabis was in it. She couldn't tell me how much THC there was. All she knew is that she was paralyzed in the chair and having panic attacks, and she called me from, I think, a long way away, and she was crying and she didn't know what to do, and her kids were all around her and freaking out because they were having a great time, but she was not, and they were terrified that maybe something was interacting with her old lady medicines and and they needed to know if they should take her to the emergency room and what should she do, and on and on and on. Let me just tell you right now, if you have found yourself in that similar situation, or if you ever do, calm down, calm down, calm down. Cannabis will not hurt you. And you may be in for a bit of a ride, but if you can drink some water, eat some food, and relax in, a comfy couch, or even go lay down, you'll sleep it off. You won't have a hangover, and you'll feel fine after you get up. Some people still feel a little woozy if their rest was short while this experience is going on, but it will wear off. Drink plenty, go to the bathroom, flush it out of your system as much as you can. And remember that you used too much THC, and it couldn't be controlled because you didn't know that you could use a tincture of CBD to help you balance that, and you still can. If you find yourself going out of control on THC, it would be wonderful if you had already prepared for that event by having some THC tincture on hand. Some CBD tincture on hand. That's cannabidiol. That's the compound that grows in huge quantities in hemp. And so THC grows in huge quantities in marijuana, but they're siblings. They're sibling compounds. And cannabidiol, CBD, will totally control THC for you. So next time, have some CBD on hand. This is the kind of alchemy I'm talking about. And next time, even if you trust that person, be gentle with yourself. If you've never experienced cannabis, and especially marijuana before, you want to take a very, very small amount. It's 10:30. And they're telling me you've got an event coming up in 30 minutes. So, okay, I'm going to be gentle on my first or next experience with getting high. And I'm going to have some recovery products available too. A tincture or even a CBD vape pen would help you get past that the fastest, okay? Not an edible of CBD, not an edible of CBD, because edibles take 30 to 45 minutes to an hour to take effect. So you want a quick rescue, and that would be a CBD vape pen or a CBD joint of just hemp. That would rescue that awful feeling as well. And also flushing it with liquids, not alcohol, and good foods, something with, let me say mango, because mango has another compound in it that calms THC. That compound is called beta-caryophyllene. And it's also found in cannabis plants and practically everything else that we eat and drink. So anyway, more about that later. Where was I? I'm just looking at my notes. The munchies, too much THC, warnings of withdrawal from cannabis. Oh, you're going to hear from voices of authority that there will be withdrawal symptoms, negative withdrawal symptoms from cannabis. I beg to differ. In my humble expert opinion, withdrawing from cannabis has no physical withdrawal symptoms. You are not physically addicted and can never physically be addicted to any of the cannabinoids in the cannabis plant, not even THC. Now, you can want to smoke it a lot or use it a lot, and you can want the great feelings of peace and calm and, anxiolytic feelings that you get, or anti-anxiolytic, I'm not sure which one that is, that assuage your anxiousness. I don't like being anxious. So using the right cannabinoids can help me get over being anxious. All right. But when the voices of authority start talking about withdrawal symptoms of cannabis, I'm really surprised and confused. You see, I've been using cannabis for years and years and years. And there have been a few times when I had to stop using it, either to travel or because my doctor asked me to before a surgery or some real reason. Okay, what happened? Well, my other old lady negative symptoms from other stuff that I've got began recurring. The nausea from my thyroid pill that I have to take every morning before I can eat. Yeah, and that lasts for hours on end. And aches and pains that I have from arthritis and neuropathy are felt 10 times higher. It makes me angry. It makes me aggravated because everything hurts. I don't sleep well anymore because I don't have the cannabis compounds to help me sleep through the night and assuage these hands. So all of these things come back when I have to stop taking cannabis. Now, are those negative withdrawal symptoms? No. That's just my life coming back at me that I cannot manage anymore because I can't use a simple, gentle plant therapy to assuage all of those symptoms. But it is not a physical withdrawal from cannabis that's doing that. It's because I stopped using a gentle plant therapy, and now here comes all my other old lady symptoms again. There's a difference. So when you hear that there are negative side effects from withdrawing from cannabis, I want clinical proof of that, please, from testing. And I want to know the compounds that were used before the withdrawal from cannabis, and I want to know the way that product was used. I want all the information that's in that product, and I want the real deal testing, gold standard testing, clinical trials to prove to me about cannabis withdrawal. In my humble opinion, there's no such thing, but I could be wrong. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I'm just reading my notes. Some of those withdrawal symptoms that they talk about are irritability, sleep disturbance, and cravings. Come on. Some voices warn against cognitive development in youth who imbibe. Now, there's no real clinical testing on this because it's forbidden by our government. But cannabis is really famous for its introspective qualities. Now, you know what happens when a 12 or 13 or 14-year-old kid gets a hold of a joint and starts using it? No? You don't know what happens? Let me tell you. Their mind explodes in all directions of ideas. They listen to what's around them. The world seems a different place and they feel better inside. For some kids, it slows them down. For kids with ADHD and ADD, it helps them find their calm. And it's an amazing tool for kids who've got all kinds of physical issues, especially for kids with seizure disorders. Okay, all right, don't get me started. When kids who try cannabis and begin using it consistently feel the calm and the peace that it can bring to them, they don't want to stop using it, and I don't blame them. We don't teach kids how to relationship 101, and that's what they suffer from mostly in this world, the relationships that surround them. Cannabis can help all of us with our relationships. To take a breath, to find peace, not to react. It's an amazing tool for treating each other better. There are, y'all lean in a little bit, there are some drug interactions. If you're some old lady or old guy taking warfarin, blood thinners for heart issues or whatever you've got going on, cannabis is a natural blood thinner. So you don't want to be using copious amounts of cannabis right before you go in for surgery. And especially not tell your surgeon and anesthesiologist about it. There are some issues. So be sure to read up on all of the information there is about cannabis as a blood thinner and how you too can manage using cannabis for pain relief and symptom relief, even though you may be on warfarin. There are many, many, many ways to manage using cannabis. And so once you learn the alchemy, you're going to enjoy the peace and relief that you will feel from it. And you won't have to worry about the contraindications of using both warfarin or blood thinning drugs like warfarin and cannabis. You'll understand how to use it properly, so it won't be a problem. All right. There is a delayed onset of effects for THC. And that can be a real big issue. If you've never used marijuana and you don't realize the onset timing of these compounds, you could be in for a big surprise. For instance, girlfriend ate that brownie and she was just fine for about 40 minutes and then it hit her like a ton of bricks. And she, didn't know what to do. Well, I've told you all how to rescue a THC overuse episode or event, but that delayed onset is different for every different way that you use cannabis. For instance, if you smoke a joint, I did it like this. I used to be an old cigarette smoker, and that's how you hold cigarettes, but generally you hold joints like this. If you smoke a joint, the onset is going to be that fast. In seconds, you're going to feel the effects of THC. You're also, in seconds, going to feel the effects of CBD if you're smoking hemp, because CBD will calm anxiety, and that will happen instantly as well. If you're using lots of THC, then the onset for a joint is very quick. and you're gonna get a mind bender. But if you use a brownie, honey, you might not feel that effect for 30, 45 minutes or even an hour. And the effect from smoking will only last a couple of hours. But the effect from ingesting, eating it, right, consuming cannabis, it has to go down through your liver. It takes about 30 minutes to get there. And when it gets there, your liver converts it into 11-hydroxy. It's a different compound altogether that's way more potent than THC. And it feels like it's gone into your bones. And it lasts for 8 whole hours almost. So for some, it could be a little shorter time. But for a lot of people, it can last 6-8 hours. So you really want to be careful about the alchemy of THC if you are not accustomed to that particular compound. Okay. Waiting the appropriate time to titrate up or redose is really important when you're ingesting some kind of cannabis. So you're not going to want to redose. Like if you just took a bite of that brownie, man, that was a good brownie. But it's hard to wait for 30 minutes to take another bite, isn't it? That's why you'd want to have a brownie over here that doesn't have any cannabis in it, so you could eat the rest of a whole brownie. But friend didn't do that. She ate the rest of that brownie that had lots of THC in it. And boy, did it kick in 30 minutes later. Woo! Okay. I want to tell you that, an accidental overconsumption, like eating too much of an edible, like a brownie, or a gummy. They make gummies with high THC content in it. And so you should cut them in halves and quarters and try just a quarter to begin with. And wait before you redose. It's hard, but wait. That's all part of it. All right. Yeah. Accidental overconsumptions won't happen if you wait, if you have patience. That can be so overwhelming. And then, that's when anxiety and paranoia and cotton mouth and racing heart and other negative symptoms can come in when you have overused, whether it's accidental or not. The markets, state by state, town by town, even dispensary to dispensary, vary. There are very few trustworthy products that are consistent, and they're not always easy to find because politics doesn't allow cannabis advertising like they do big pharma commercials on every TV and device that you have. So again, the gaslighting of cannabis continues because our government knows the medicinal value of this plant, yet they are in bed with big pharmacy and big corporations, television, radio, internet, to subdue this information. Here's another one. Products are more than not, mismarked for dosing and potency. And lab reports are not consistent because our laws are unable to regulate the market under, the federal Schedule 1 rating. So the federal rating, Schedule 1, means that this drug has no viable use for humans or animals, and that is just not true. And the government is lying about it. There is a lingering stigma from 100 years of political gaslighting, and it is just hard to get past. It is just hard to get past, especially for elders and professionals. Workplace drug testing is still in commonplace use. Drug testing for cannabis. Why don't they just judge the work that the person is doing? And if the person isn't working well, then why drug test them? Why not just value that person based on the work that they do for that company? They put more value in what's in your pee than your work. Access to medicine is a real problem for most people. It's often not available. They can't get to it. It's too expensive. It's hard to find a doctor who has studied cannabis and knows both cannabis and your issues. You may have real serious issues, Parkinson's, cancer, seizures. There's state licenses that you may have to get and deal with. There is legal confusion and political shenanigans still overwhelming the cannabis industry and anyone interested in this plant. So let me just talk about some of the myths of cannabis. You can't overdose on cannabis. Myth 1, you cannot overdose on cannabis. Oh, yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can overdose on cannabis, on THC especially. And if you use too much of some of the other compounds, you might be a little nauseated from it. So there is definitely an ability to overdose on cannabinoids. And if you're overusing THC, it'll cause anxiety that leads to paranoia and feelings of paralysis or heart racing. 10 minutes. And it's just not fun. There's disorientation and panic. It's just not fun. You really, really have to be careful of dosing the right amount for your needs. That's called greening out when you use too much. It's, edibles, again, are terribly easy to green out on because you're not judging, you can't judge how much is in the product and la. Myth 2, cannabis is legal now. I've been saying it. Cannabis is still federally a Schedule I drug and is not legal. And so they still control the banking, the advertising, and the access to it, even though some of our states have said, So it just makes it very difficult to standardize anything and to be able to get consistent medication. Myth 3, doctors now know about cannabis. No, they don't. Some doctors who have taken the initiative on their own to learn about this plant, who are already, MDs and DOs and, specialist doctors in the American medical system who have taken the time to find out about this plant scientifically. There's a few of them, but most doctors around the globe do not have any cannabis education. After you've been listening to me, you now know more than 99% of the doctors on the planet. I've said it before, and I just love that. Hey, listen, I've got to wrap this up. People expect me on stage on Facebook in just a few minutes, but this information is not to scare you. And when you realize the long, rich planetary history of this plant and how it has shaped the U.S., you begin to see the truth and just how naughty our politicians have been, throwing patients under the bus to get in bed with big corporate medicine. I don't mean to be melodramatic about this, but just Google the history of cannabis. Our first settlers were ordered to grow it to create our first navy. Our livestock was fed and fed on it. Our nation made stronger by it. and then Google that U.S. government patent on cannabis and just astonish yourself. You want a better life? I did. Open your eyes, look at history, and then let's take a course correction in our society and renew our relationship with this planetary gift that heals suffering of all kinds. Thank you for hanging out with me to understand the stigma and some of this crazy nonsense around the cannabis plant, and also some of the negative side effects that are real about cannabis. You may have to go listen to this again to figure it all out, but that's okay. Cannabis is a safe, gentle remedy for all kinds of human and animal aches and pains. I hope you have learned a lot from this and will begin investigating more. Jump on Facebook. Go find me in the Resilience Beyond Menopause forum. That's Jackie Dickens Walker's forum. And listen to my live talk there. And also on many other forums on Facebook. You'll find my own forum, the Holistic Relief Forum is there as well. So we're gathering information and telling all kinds of great science stories about this gentle plant therapy. I'll see you on the other side. Take care, everybody.
You've been listening to another Cannabis Truth podcast with 21st century cannabis shaman Honey Smith Walls. Using cannabis mindfully as medication is a different concept in Western healthcare philosophy, specifically over the past century. There's a lot to learn and reconsider. The scientific truth of cannabis is finally getting out and is wide open for all to see at respected medical sites like the National Library of Medicine at pubmed.gov and the Journal of American Medical Association at JAMAnetwork.com. We here at the Cannabis Truth Podcast are right there in the thick of it, alongside the titans of medicine, as a fly on the wall. We are not doctors, nor did we go to medical school, but we have taken dozens of private cannabis courses and still engage in continuing education offered by expert cannabis scientists. Over the past few years, we slowly began to see and understand the bigger picture. Now we hear from people all day long about cannabis. It is so important to use verifiably safe products. The process of getting a diagnosis from your family doctor and taking your records to a cannabis specialist can lead you to the correct cannabinoid therapy for your specific issues. Otherwise, you're simply your own guinea pig looking for answers without the foundational knowledge or ability to determine your best strategy. To find a qualified cannabis expert in your area, visit cannabisclinicians.org. This is a national society of cannabis experts. Look for the link in the show notes. Unless otherwise proven by a reputable third-party lab test, please regard all street weed as contaminated. It may do grave harm to a patient with a delicate immune system who already has inflammatory issues like arthritis, IBS, fibromyalgia, or worse. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you find value and understanding through the conversations you've heard on this podcast.